You would say these things are needs?
I would say those 7 things are needs, okay? Not needs for survival. That's air and water and, you know. They're needs for this notion of the self-acceptance, which is the point at which we're allowed to thrive. We're allowed to live into our potential. The part that, you know, is metaphorically the oak tree that comes to blossom, you know, the fullness of what it means to be oneself.
How do you distinguish between wants and needs? I find this hard, and I'm not very good at it.
For me, and this is really kind of not, I don't think I've ever been asked that question or thought of it in those terms, but just from the top of my head, I would say that needs are the foundation, okay, that we are limited without, okay. Wants are more related to the desires, the part of us that's trying to figure out who we are and what we want for our life. And so they're not mutually exclusive. They overlap. In fact, you know, I often are reminded of the line from the Rolling Stones song, "You can't always get what you want, but if you try, sometimes you get what you need." Okay, and that's beautiful. And I wonder how they had that wisdom when they were, you know, 24 years old. But there is a relationship between wants and needs, and I think needs are that foundation. Wants are the aspirations, maybe, or more connected to what we.
I want to add something to that, because I have this every time I go out and, let's say, shop or and, you know, it's all about women, like shopping. I always ask myself, like, do I need this or do I want this? Do I need this because I don't have it and it's necessary, or do I want it to make me feel good? Do I want it to make me feel more self-worthy? Do I need this for me to feel self-worthy? So it's a very two concept that always plays in my mind, because some of my friends also told me that I don't know if this is a want or a need. And I'm not saying that I have a strong understanding about the two things, but I just kind of like ask myself all the time. Let's just say right now exploration is not a need for me, because I feel like, okay, I've explored much. I have a friend who also have this strong, you know, like inner pull of like traveling. And I always say, and the person asks me like, I don't know if I need to do this or I want to do this. And all I can see and see in the person is that I feel like you need to do this to feel complete within yourself. Maybe you need to do this to develop more self-awareness of yourself. You need to expand more as a person. You don't want, perhaps, because of the things that limits you, that your mind is telling you not to do it, because maybe you have a lot of things. You feel safe where you are right now, and you feel like ungrounded if you will go. But you need to do this for yourself, not because of other people. So that's how I kind of like see the difference between wants and needs. Is this something true to me, that I need to do this for myself, or I'm doing this to get validation from other people? Do I want this because this is what I truly want and it makes me feel good, and I feel like it will add to the belief and the confidence and, you know, like things that makes you authentic as who you are, because you don't need to ask for validation of others. You're doing this for yourself. So that's how I see it. Like it always boils down for me when it comes to like buying stuff, because let's just say consumerism per se. Especially for women, like it's plastered in our faces. Like you will look more beautiful if you have this. You feel more good if you wear this. But in the beginning, it's not actually how these things it could add extra feeling for a woman to feel beautiful, but if you achieve to a point of okayness in yourself that I am beautiful who I am, this is my essence, whatever I bring to the table, this is me, and that's beautiful. These things are just extra, and these things are just something that, you know, gives more confidence to me, but if I don't have it, it's okay, because I don't need it. So that I don't, yeah.
Well, I have another thought on this as well, based on what you're saying. So, I travel because I feel like it's a need for me. I was in Manchester in the UK for quite a long time, for 15 years, in the same apartment. I felt like I was treading water, and if I'd just stayed there, eventually I would get tired and I'd just drown. A bit dramatic, but you get what I mean. And so I needed to just go out into the unknown, like we were sort of touching upon before, and travel. So I felt like I needed to do that because it was how I could grow and how I could develop. But I also wanted to buy the flight, I wanted to go to that place and visit this place that I'd never been to. So I'm curious what you all think about, could or can something be both a want and a need?
Okay, there's a thought that comes up. So for me, in my personal journey, I got to this point where I feel like I don't need to travel because I've been living life the past 8 years, moving from one place to another, like moving every 2 years. I need to move from one country to another because of visa, and I'm traveling for work. So that's what I did for the past 8 years, where I literally feel so ungrounded, and I felt like, oh, I need a home base right now. I felt like I was traveling for the past 10 years and I don't know who I am. I got this notion of like, let's say, a conclusion for my personal journey, that someone needs to travel and discover themselves and get to a point where they need to sit down and integrate everything, and then they will feel later on the feeling of like, I don't need to travel, but I want to travel. It's because I wanted to explore. I wanted to see the world because it's huge. And I think it goes like it's a two concept that could actually overlap as what you have said, but this feeling of, as what you've said, like you've been in the same space for 15 years and you feel like you're getting into the point of drowning. And I heard it from you also, Eva, like the other time that we were talking, that you stayed in this managerial position before because of the feeling of you need to do this for other people, but then you feel like you're dying, so that's why you need to change.
I mean, yeah, just to comment on that a bit, what I meant by doing it for other people, I didn't mean it in the what we talked about previously, like saving somebody. I meant that I was doing it because I had this idea of what I'm supposed to be like other people's ideas. Yeah. But yeah, what you've been, wants and needs, I feel like often there is no difference for me personally. I don't know, maybe it's like, in my experience, wanting comes when the needs are satisfied. Mm-hmm. Like, speaking of traveling, I was planning this little trip for a visa run, and I felt that it was coming from a place of curiosity, like inner child. Mm. And it's rare, like for me it's rare, because usually with traveling, for me it's a need. Like, it's a need to escape something. But now, once I feel grounded enough and safe enough and comfortable enough, I noticed in myself this like emerging want. Okay, so I'm curious about that place, because I feel like one needs a lot of resource to be able to want. Like, the capacity to want something requires a lot of inner resource, and if you're in deficit, it just wouldn't work. But this is like my personal experience of that.
Say more about deficit. What do you mean if you're in deficit?
Well, if some needs are unmet, basically, so much so that there is no space for exploring or curiosity, because well, I associate wanting with exploration, and this is something active. So it's like putting what you want out there. And when there is a deficit, when a lot of needs are unmet, I feel like the person just doesn't have the energy to actively engage with the world. But maybe it's just my type.
I think you're on to something there. It's that sense of deficit, neediness, or not standing on the foundation of self-acceptance, but swimming in the insecurities of confusion.
Something I wanted to share, it's a bit like, if we could go just a little bit back, because we were discussing the topic, which I feel like, I want to share my thoughts, and maybe even need to share my thoughts, because I feel like I need to figure something out, works better through talking. Speaking of saving the others, actually, thank you for sharing how your experience with work and what you find rewarding. Like if it's at least 1% of people that you help, it already means something. Made me reflect on how I perceive my work. I'm currently tutoring English, but I never feel like I can take any credit or want to take any credit for my clients' improvement. Because I feel like it's not my place, it's not my role. I'm just there to offer them a set of tools, and I'm there to offer a conversation and hold like a safe space. And then it's totally up to them to what extent they want to engage. And so I feel good about what I do. I feel good about the work that I do when emotionally the conversation feels good. So when I feel like we're both okay in this conversation, and throughout the lesson the person seems to be feeling good, that's what I guess like the criteria, like my internal criteria for measuring a success, let's say. And I feel like it's related to the fact that the other is always a mirror. So when we want to save somebody, when we see that somebody is not doing okay, and as you said, like attack them with the goodness, like basically the other becomes a mirror of what we need ourselves. And I've been very tempted by trying to save somebody, because it's like this kind of jobs like teaching, and especially I guess therapy, it's very tempting to just step into that role of a savior. And that's what I've been trying to stop doing, I guess to some extent successfully. Because I guess that the question is, why would you want to save somebody in the first place, and what is it that makes you think that this person wants to be saved? Yesterday I had a webinar, and I had a very interesting idea, which is a bit new to me, that when a client comes to therapy and they share their story, and the therapist feels like, oh my God, this is so, like, it's so horrible, like how is this person coping, and they start feeling a lot of emotions, like a lot of empathy, compassion, like fear. And then the question is like, so that's that person's life, that's their subjective experience, so what makes you think that that person is actually suffering? That's how they chose to navigate their life, even in childhood. So yes, there are unmet needs, but the child always looks for a way to meet certain needs. Let me reformulate that. I feel like a child just biologically, organismically, always finds a way to find some state of harmony, some way. It's not always like these mechanisms often become not very effective in adulthood. But there is some way that a child finds to navigate their life, and then it creates their story, and it's their subjective experience. And no matter what it seems to an outsider, it might it might be okay for a person, and it just, I guess I'm still trying to wrap my mind around this, that subjective okayness doesn't have to be aligned with what is generally considered to be okay, maybe even with some ethical norms. And maybe this extra compassion is not good for a person, and instead it would be beneficial for them to give them this empowerment, like, yeah, this is your story and this is how you chose to deal with it, and like this is your responsibility, and you're doing good at it, like considering what was the initial conditions which were there. Sorry, I feel like it took me a while to formulate it.
Absolutely. The word that I would plug in there is coping. Okay, because you're absolutely right. When we're living life in ways that maybe aren't meeting our needs, or that are, fraught with challenges, we don't just fold up and die. We don't say, okay, can't do it. No, we cope.
I feel like it sometimes.
Yeah, we do. We feel like, oh, it's too much, but we keep going. We cope, and coping is a good thing. It's an amazing thing. It's an important thing. Okay, and so we always want to honor, as you're saying, what that is. We don't want to say, oh, but you're not doing it the right way, or no. We want to be able to allow that to be true, and to value how it is that a person has come to do that. But we also can realize that coping is not the same as living from a place where we don't have to cope. Okay, where our needs are met, we're okay, and we're not just getting by. You see? Now, where I see this a lot in therapy is in midlife years. Because as we get older, our coping strategies wear thinner. Okay? It's not meant to be the way we live a whole life. It's meant to get us to the next thing. And of course, there's also healthy and unhealthy versions. There's ways in which addiction becomes part of that coping. There's all these ways in which we're essentially avoiding or neglecting the questions that have to do with why it is we're coping. What it is that we didn't get, maybe, or what we did get, maybe trauma or abuse or something that's painful we'd rather avoid. So, and that's why it's very important for any of us who are in the helping profession, or even thinking, unprofessional, personal support, is not to try to get ahead of people and know what they need and to sort it out. It's to come alongside and hold the space along with them in ways that allow them to feel seen and heard and understood and safe enough to grapple with what that might be, the difference between how I've learned to cope and what it is that maybe is a deeper version of an authentic self.
I guess just one last thing I wanted to connect it to. In the beginning of our conversation today, you mentioned fairness, what is just and what is unjust. And I feel like having this, I caught myself a few times reflecting on my past and thinking that something wasn't fair. And then, but what does it mean, fair or not fair? And it seems to me that this is a path to self-victimization, like something wasn't fair, something was done to me in an unfair way. And again, I guess I'm asking myself, to what extent is it even helpful? Because I think I have this nasty habit to tell myself stories about myself and how I was miserable in some way. I'm realizing that it really doesn't help. Like acknowledging certain unmet needs is important to outline a pathway to, you know, what can I do for myself now. But that at the same time, I feel like it could be really therapeutic to, if a person tells themselves, so this is how I manage to cope, this is how I manage to meet my needs, and like, do we even need to introduce the concept of fairness?